think we're up for everybody. Good morning, sub tours. We had a little bit of a delay this morning with Zoom. Apparently Zoom updated and they didn't want to cooperate with us too much, but we made it. So we're here now with Sharon Vornholt. Good morning, Sharon. Welcome to Talk.
Good morning, William. You had problems with Zoom and I had problems with Zoom, the new Zoom.
I know it. You know, now you have to go in and give them permission to be able to live stream in your group, but we got it all straightened out because we're technical wizards. So we got everything all straightened out. So we're here this morning, guys. So we're here this morning to talk about probate. As you guys know, Sharon is a probate as well as a marketing and branding expert. And she's going to talk to us all about probate this morning. So if you got some questions, drop those things in the comments and we'll get to every one of those that we can. Like I said, you know, just as always, we have a really super nice freebie. Sharon has, she's sharing well, tell us about the freebie that you're giving everybody for participating this morning.
Well, it's called a Probate Investing Starter Kit, and so you can get that at probateinvestingsimplified.com/starter kit. So it's real simple to get it. And I'm sure that you can put the link in there. But it gives you a basic knowledge of the process. It's got the roadmap, the graphic, and a sample letter in there. So you really can get started with just that.
Hey, Mark, good to see you. Rudy, good to see you. Sammy, glad you could join us this morning. Okay, so like I said, you guys drop your questions in there. Sharon, you shared with me, because we did a podcast together a few weeks ago, and you told me that you believe probates are the best lead sources on the planet. You want to share why with everybody today?
Well, sadly, you'll never run out of leads. The thing that people have to wrap their brain around is that these people have their lives, they have their businesses, their families, and right smack dab in the middle of that, they've got the business of settling the estate, which happens to be, in most cases, selling any property in the estate. So as a course of the normal course of life, you have a new group of leads every single month. And that's why you will literally never run out of leads with probate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. You know, people make a lot of jokes about that stuff and everything. I had a JV partner once that pursued probate, and he was talking about all the fresh leads. So exactly what you're talking about. Hey, Phil. Yeah, listen. Wiley had trouble with the Zoom feed this morning. That's for sure. You know, Wiley, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but anyway, but we got it all figured out. Zoom decided to make a change where you actually have to put their app in your group to go live. And conveniently, they didn't tell anybody about that, but it'll take us but a few minutes to figure it out. So, hey, Ron, good to see you. Tim, I'm glad to see you on here. If you guys drop your probate questions in here for Sharon this morning. Let's see. So another interesting thing about probate leads is that COVID and everything has created a situation where, as you explained to me, there's going to be a surge of probate cases here in the next 12 to 18 months. So you want to share a little bit more about that with us?
Yes, so probate is a legal process. And when the court shut down pretty much everywhere in March of 2020, some of the people had already opened their estate, which again, it's a legal process, but all you need to understand is that it has to happen. But those cases that had already been opened, they just got stuck. They were in limbo. And then you had all the people back here with, you know, that were unable to open their estate. Currently in my area, the courts are open 25-30% of normal capacity, something like that. We're still doing Zoom eviction court here, which is quite interesting, according to my daughter. But even in Chicago, their courts are only open at 25% capacity. So what that means is month after month after month, if you're in a big metropolitan area where you have 800 leads a month and only 25% of those get through the court system, you've got 600 leads building up month after month after month on top of what's getting through. So Geographically, that number is different for every area. It's a lower number in my area because we're geographically not as big, but it is still significant that there are a backlog of leads that must go through the process, must come out on the other end of the court process. So they're just building up, building up.
It seems to me like a backlog of that too. And I know from what you've told me, a lot of these executors or administrators are either family members or close friends that got this thing thrown on them. They have just everyday, soccer games and work and everything else they've got to do too. So they want to get these things done. So they're probably going to be super motivated to get those things out of the way.
They are super motivated. Because in many cases, the executor or the personal representative, so the executor would be named in the will if there was a will, the administrator would be appointed by the court. They have the same role and jointly are considered the personal representative. But they're very often the person who stands to inherit. And they can't inherit whatever it is they're inheriting until this process plays out. So they're super motivated to get the property sold, to get everything converted to cash so that they can move forward and just be done. They want to be done because it is a business. It is the business of probate is a legal process.
Okay. Hey, Matt, good to see you. Art, good to see you on here today. Yeah, Tracy, we see you. Hey, I know you got some questions, so let's get them in here. A thing I actually had, and I know what you mentioned earlier when we actually had the meeting in the coaching group the other night about people that go after probate by contacting obituaries. And that's probably not the best manner to do that, is it?
That's the worst idea on the planet, honestly. And this is what I always tell people: somebody's mama died. You don't want to do that.
Right.
And trust me, after working in probate since 2008 and going about this the right way, leading them down the path with direct mail until they are emotionally and just ready to sell the property. Right. That I've heard so many stories. It's almost like they have a dartboard on the wall and all the people that contacted them in a way that hurt them or made them mad, your name is up there on that dartboard and you are never going to get that deal. So no, you don't want to work obituaries. And remember this, they can't sell the house until the probate is open. So there's no being first here before the estate is open because you can't buy the property. So you just need to be patient and know that when the seller opens the personal representative opens the estate, they're raising their hand. They're saying, I'm ready to move forward. Right. And that's your cue.
Yeah, that answers Sammy's question. He was asking about pre-probate being a good time to reach out before the trust has been created. And I think what he meant was before the case is opened, and no, that's not something that you want to do.
Yeah, no, well, you can't buy the house at that stage. So you really should focus on the leads where you can buy the property. That's where your focus should be.
Right. Hey, Matt wants to know, where is the best place to get the freshest probate leads? Using fresh in there, that always, it sounds really
I'll try to unhear that word, but I know, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
So as I told William before, there are over 3,300 counties in the US, and each one of those counties has a different process. So what you need to do is to find out how you get the leads in your area. And I'll tell you how I found out. All those years ago, I called my local probate court and I said, I'm a real estate investor and interested in helping folks that have an unwanted property. Do you have any idea where I can get a list of those? And the lady said, I know that they're printed in the newspaper every month, called the newspaper. So I picked up the phone and called the local newspaper, and they told me exactly the time of the month that they were printed, and they'll be back there. If they're in the newspaper, they'll be there where the the sheriff's sales and the legal notices are. That's where you'll find them. But you can start by Googling. Just Google probate plus your county, probate plus your state. Maybe you're one of the lucky states where they're online. Here, many places there are online records where you can search there. But I told William the other night when we were in his private coaching group, I'm not a fan of buying leads. First of all, in most cases, they're very expensive. I mean, we're talking some companies are charging $10 a lead.
Right.
50 leads is $500, and they may be old. They may not be any good. They may not have all the information. Now I don't want to generalize all services because I'm sure there are some services out there that do it the right way. But these are leads that in general, you can get free or close to free if you're willing to do the work. And since they're local, you just got to do a little detective work.
Yeah. Hey, Cynthia, good to see you. Good morning to you. We'll get your question in a minute. Yeah, Tracy, you're here. So good to see you. You talk about the publication in the newspaper and being somewhat of a subterranean investor is what I like to call it.
Subterranean.
Subterranean. I mean, I'm looking for the, I'm wanting to get that lead way before anybody else has it. So if and I know in a lot of cases, that thing gets filed at the courthouse. That's the first indication. Of course, COVID has impacted all of this stuff, getting in the courthouse, getting behind the desk. A lot of investors don't realize all of this stuff is public record. And yeah, it does take a little schmoozing with the people a lot of times to get behind the counter. But yeah, a couple of boxes of Krispy Kremes occasionally to the workers down there goes a long way. That got me behind the counter at civil and magistrate court. I mean, I got fresh eviction filings, divorce, probate. You can pull all those things when the courthouses are open if you work things properly. That's something to remember. Matt wanted to know, what is the best thing or the best thing to say when you approach a probate lead? What's the best thing out of the gate to say to them?
Well, go get the freebie. And I'll have a sample letter in there. So when you are marketing to probates, if people always say, can't I just call them? Can't I just text them or whatever? And I have to tell you, that's a really terrible idea. That works in every real estate niche, probably except probates. And you have to remember why this opportunity exists for you. It's because someone has passed away. So how you nurture these leads with your direct mail letters is critical. There's no hard sell in there. It's a matter of introducing yourself and in subsequent letters, reminding them of who you are and how you can help them when they are ready. And I've had more people tell me that they chose me because of that approach, and it works. This is a case where being first it's probably one of the only times when being first is not necessarily an advantage, because they're just not ready to sell the house. When they open the estate, they've usually got a house full of stuff. So if you get the leads the first month, that's really early. Chances are they're not going to actually sell that property till 4, 5, 6, 7 months down the road. Now, people will say, so why would I start marketing that early? It's to get those those deals where they do sell the house. Every now and then you'll get one who maybe wasn't on the friendliest terms with the person who passed away, and they're at the courthouse the day after the funeral, opening the estate, and you want to be there. But remembering that 90% of your competition will quit mailing on or before the third mailing, just follow the path, the proven path. Mail everybody every month. Let them know that you're there to help them, and you'll be happy to answer any questions. I've had lots of people call me and say, we're not going to be ready to sell for 6 months, but tell me how you work. And I'll explain it. And I'll say, what I'm going to do is just send you a letter every month. No pressure here. Just know that this is how you can reach me when you're ready. And they appreciate that approach, because they're getting bombarded with legal stuff and bill collectors and all of these things, and you can turn out to be their biggest ally. Right. I tell people I've gotten the most hugs at probate closings of all types of deals. And that's true, because you just helped them out of what is undeniably a terrible situation. Right. But they're just so daggone happy to be done.
Right. And just listening to you talk about that, it's true. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of stuff. If it was a family
Mhm.
member, there's a grief element in that. And I can see, the best thing to do, drop them into your favorite CRM, whatever that may
Mhm.
be, on a 12-month drip campaign, and make sure you put something in. And tell me if I'm wrong here. I'm not a probate investor, but it stands to reason if you included something in your mailings along the lines of, hey, I realize you may not be ready to sell right now, but feel free to reach out to me as a resource if I can help with anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly the strategy that you take. And the letter sequence that I have is not, the letters are not that much different, but they'll start off maybe a few months down the road. I just wanted to check in and see how you're coming with the estate. Do you have any questions? Or is there anything I can do to help make this process easier on you?
Right.
They remember those things. And
Mhm.
again, you're going to close it out with just like, I'll be here when you're ready.
Mhm.
And
Right.
they just resonate with that touch. There's so many strategies where you need to be first, you need to be quick. Maybe there's a sense of urgency, let's say pre foreclosures. Each strategy, each investing strategy has its own little nuances, but this is one where you have a great opportunity to earn referrals too, because if you've handled this terrible situation for them, when they know someone that has a property to sell, they're going to remember you.
Right. Or any other property. I mean, in any
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Sharon, she was very helpful during the process. She really lightened the load, and she, so they're going to
Mhm.
remember you for sure. Yeah. Cynthia asked, besides counties, would title companies have access to those lists?
Yes, yes. In some areas they do, in some areas they don't.
Mhm.
Again, this is area specific. So do your research, check with your title company. You want to the probate needs to have been filed because the executor, the personal representative, is going to be the decision maker. That is the person that can actually sign on the dotted line and sell you the property. And until that person has been appointed or named by the court formally, the house cannot be sold. And that is the person you'll be dealing with. Or, as I said before, sometimes a relative will show the house, or maybe they're closer, or they don't mind, or whatever the situation is. But when it comes to putting the deal together, there's only one person that can do that, and that's the executor. So
Right.
you need to know, this is a case of when you talk to these people on my intake form, it says, who are you, and are you the owner of the house? And if you're not the owner of the house, and in the case of a probate, I would always say, are you the personal representative?
Mhm.
So it's okay to talk to the other people, but just understand you can't finalize the deal with them.
Okay. Hey guys, good to see y'all in here. Hey Eugene, good to see you. Listen, tag a couple of people in here. Let's get some people in here to ask some good probate questions. We got a ton of them coming in now. Phil said, are the available probate properties ones where the deceased didn't have a living trust? I would say yes to that. If you're in a trust, that
Yes.
property avoids probate.
Yes, that's correct. So if you're in the probate process, it's kind of a straight line process with a million things going on behind the scenes with attorneys. But for investors, it's a very straight line process. But if you have your property in a trust, it's going to go like this, and it's going to skip and come out at the bottom.
Mhm.
And then it becomes an inherited property, which is a list you can purchase.
Okay. Rudy asked, what are some of the methods used to obtain probate leads? And I think Sharon said earlier, that's really going to depend on your county. It may be online at the county level. It may be published in the newspaper with the foreclosure stuff. It's really going to depend, isn't it?
It depends. So I had a student in Houston, and he said, I just can't figure out how to get probate leads. And we Googled probate plus, I think it's Harris County, and voila, there they were. Every shred of information was online free,
Mhm.
because you only need the name and address of the deceased, so you know where the property is located, and the name and address of the executor or the personal representative. You don't need wills and case numbers and all of that unless you have to actually go to the courthouse in one of these rare areas. If you live in New Jersey, God help you, because you're going to have to go to the courthouse. And
Right.
and that sadly that's true with other places.
Mhm. Talking about it depends. Listen, I remember when I got started investing, and all
Mhm.
of the courses I had read on foreclosure said there will be a tip-off document filed at the courthouse. So there I go down to the Bibb County Courthouse in Macon, Georgia, and I'm trying to convince these people, where are the foreclosure listings? And they're like, there's
Mhm.
nothing here. And I'm like, listen, my course told me there would be something filed at the courthouse. And they're like, well, I'm sorry, I hate to tell you. And sure enough, in Georgia, a deed of a security deed state, there's nothing at the courthouse. The first that anybody knows about anything is the first Saturday of
Mhm.
the month when they're published in the newspaper.
Mhm.
There's nothing filed at the courthouse. So every place is different for sure.
Every place is different. So we were talking about another way that some people are able to backtrack and find the leads is through the notice to creditors. So in the probate process, after the estate is opened, and then the matter is settled, who's going to be in charge, who's the decision maker. Then the next step is generally the assets are sold. And then you go on down to the creditors are paid. Now, in almost every state, you have to file a notice to creditors, and that varies by state. So I recently did a training in Chicago, and it spells it out. You have to put a notice in the paper twice this many days apart, and then they have 6 months to respond. If they don't see that notice, then they're just out of luck.
Mhm.
Then they can no longer come and try to collect their debt. Well, in having students, I found out that in New York, there is no notice to creditors. It's up to creditors, I guess, we're back to obituaries, to check the obituaries or have some sort of a system, because there's no notice of, Sharon's no longer here. If she owed you money, now's your time, and here's your timeline to come and get your money. I don't actually know how they're supposed to figure it out, but you should Google for your own information.
Mhm.
In the state where you live, what are the rules with notice to creditors? Because if you have a mortgage, you can bet the banks have a system for finding out if you've passed away.
Right.
Same way with car dealerships, the payments get missed, but there's almost always a notice to creditors. And I'll say this is a disclaimer. Everything I tell you, there's always an exception somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. Eugene asked, what's your strategy to network with probate lawyers?
Well, this is a two-way thing. So I want to full disclosure here. I love my real estate attorney, but I've never found probate attorneys to be the least bit sympathetic to us getting a good deal.
Mhm.
If they happen to be the executor of that estate, that's bad luck, because they're going to pull up on your tax assessor site and they're going to go, oh, this house is worth $200,000. And then we're going to walk in there and say it needs $150,000 worth of work. They're going to go, nope, it says here it's worth 200,000. So in the scenario of you buying an individual house, if there's an attorney involved, they almost always muck up the deal.
Mhm.
Now, with that being said, and I say that with love, there is a case for marketing to probate attorneys. Market to them, tell them what you do. They're not going to want to hear from you every month. I recommend going to them and trying to get a meeting, paying for 30 minutes of their time. You know how we all hate it when people say, I just want to pick your brain for a Starbucks for for a couple of hours. Call them up and say, can I come by and introduce myself and let me know what your hourly rate is? That will be the best money you ever spend.
Mhm.
Then follow up with them every quarter and say, because they've got someone they sell their awful houses to. There are probate attorneys that really is what they do, is probates.
Mhm.
So in the case when they get a house that needs a ton of work, they're not going to make a lot of money off of it. They just want to get rid of it. And you can bet they have an investor in their back pocket.
Right.
But you know that all investors fall out of favor
Mhm.
with people over time. So it's okay to market to them and be their plan B and then slide into plan A one day. But that is a whole different marketing campaign. But I do recommend that you spend $100 if their rate's $200 now, spend $100 and walk down there and face to face them and leave them your card. It's good money.
And I would add this because this works, and I found this works in all. It doesn't matter, attorneys, any professional people, especially if you're going to put yourself out there to them, you better be prepared to perform if they call on you. Because I'll give you an example. I've got a student who was trying to make an in with realtors in his area, and he did make contact with a broker who said, "Sure, I'll send you some deals of people that don't have enough equity to pay us." And so sure enough, shortly thereafter, he called my guy up and said, "Hey, I've got a deal here. They don't have much equity." And my student told me, he said, "It wasn't the best deal in the world. It was okay, but I went ahead and did it to cement that relationship with this guy, because now he knows if he calls me, I'm not just full of, hot air. I'll actually get something done." So yeah, be prepared to, not to, diddle daddle around. I mean, to get busy if somebody calls. So yeah.
And it's okay to say, like in the case of a sub-2 deal, it's okay to say to them, to be honest with them and tell them what your guidelines are.
Right.
If they know what you expect, whatever that minimum amount of equity is, or whatever the deal structure is, they'll be okay with that. But you're 100% right about that. When they call you, you better try your darndest to find a way to figure it out.
Yeah, make that thing work. Matt asked, are all courts running at 25%? Well, when they go to 100? Well, I can tell you this based on what I know, is that's going to be county specific. It doesn't even matter the state. What the governor said, the counties can rule and decide they want to keep things tightened down or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wish there was a better answer, but that is the answer.
Right. So the thing is, we just don't know. I know we're trying to put together an event for this fall, and in talking with the coordinator at the hotel, she says, "Listen, this is where we are now. This is where we hope to be by September. But when the governor relaxes things, our mayor in our city in New Orleans says, 'Oh no, we're not doing that. We're still staying at this level.' So it's all politics, and there's just a lot of things factored into that." So Phil asks, if the will leaves the house to someone who is not the representative, can they sell it to you?
Yes, if somebody directly inherits the house, if it's for whatever, for one of the scenarios where it doesn't go through probate, yes, then you can do a creative finance deal, the same as you would on any other one. The vast majority of the properties that aren't in trust, that so they don't go through probate, will need to be purchased for cash, because that's the way probate works.
Right. Okay. Hey, Tammy, good to see you. Yeah, a ton of great tips here. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tracy asked, what is the name of the filing that opens the estate? I'm looking through my city's website for filings, but you have to know the exact name of the forms.
Well, once, I would say those forms could be a little bit different state to state, but when someone has been when the estate has been opened and a person has been either named in the will or been appointed, they issue something called the letters of testamentary. And you'll just hear people refer to them as the letters. But what this actually is a paper. So if I said, "William, are you the executor or the personal representative?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I'm that person." And I thought maybe he hadn't actually been named the person. I might say, we always ask to see a copy of the letters. So there have actually been cases where that's happened, where somebody has claimed the estate is open, but there'll be this document called the letters. It will say who the person is. So that might be a way to figure that out.
Again, don't be afraid to, if the courthouse is open, go down there and speak to somebody in that department that handles those things, or pay that fee and go talk to a reputable attorney and try to get all those questions answered.
Yeah, but for sure, Google the probate laws in your state. I would guess that your people are coming from all over. There, you can Google that in a hot minute and it will tell you the process. It will tell you something that comes up every once in a while is somebody passes away with a paid off house. And then all the relatives move into the house and they just don't do anything. They just live in the house. If the person didn't have a will, they didn't have a mortgage, then that can actually happen. But there will come a day when they want to sell that house and get the money out of it. Then there's a dilemma, because each state has a process for what do you do when somebody didn't follow the law and file the probate during the period of time. And different states have different rules on that too. So for instance, if you live in, I had a student in Tulsa, he wrote a contract on one of those houses. And the way it worked there is you had to submit it. It went before the judge, and the judge decided if the sale was valid. But what he found out when he went to court that day is anybody can show up at court and they can overbid you right there in the court, even though you have a signed contract. So this is a case of know your state laws, but have an attorney, know your state laws in the general sense, but have an attorney. For me, that's my real estate attorney. He knows all about probate. If I have a question, I'm not going to spend forever trying to figure it out. I'm just going to call Harry.
Right. Okay. Tracy also had a follow-up here. If I can find the appointment of trustee, can I follow that to get that information? She said, I see these filings.
Yeah, probably. Yes.
Okay. All righty. Hey guys, type your questions in here so we can get those things answered. Remember, Sharon's got a tremendous freebie for you, and we're going to send that to everybody that asks questions. So you'll want that. It's a Probate Starter Kit. So it's going to tell you how to get started doing this stuff. And I think you've got a sample letter or two in there. And what is included in that kit?
It has, I do a little bit of an overview of the probate process. I have the graphic that you can put up on your wall so you can remember the steps. And then I have a sample letter in there. And I think that's about it. But I also have a ton of information on the blog, the Louisville Gals Real Estate blog. There's a ton of information, videos and articles. I've got right about 900 pieces of content on there. So you're going to be able to find what you're looking for.
I know you were telling me the other day something about you were moving it or something, or where your storage was, and it was so big with so much information, videos and posts and things, that it was huge. You had to have a lot of storage room. So it must. Well,
I did, and what happened was, GoDaddy's not my friend. They said we went along, and they didn't say, by the way, your blog is getting too big. They just shut it down. They shut my site down and said, you're hogging all the bandwidth. And I said, well, nobody told me. I didn't know. So then they put this ridiculous price to stay with them. And then I just hired an expert. We moved over to somebody that was better able to handle that. Right. And then I prayed all night that it all ended up in a readable form. And it was the scariest thing I ever did, honestly.
Yep. So Tanya asked Sharon, will you share what kind of deals you're generally able to negotiate with a personal representative? And are they generally savvy? The representatives, are they usually pretty savvy, tough negotiators or whatnot?
They're not any more savvy than anybody in any other niche. And because it's an emotional time for them, sometimes they have an attachment to the house that's unrealistic. They love the knotty pine cabinets that their dad built in 1945. So for them, that has value as an investor. And maybe if you're a rehabber and your end buyer would have no interest in those knotty pine cabinets. So sometimes you have to have those conversations with them. But now I don't think, if anything, they're more motivated and they want to find a common ground, find a solution, and get the house sold. So I would say the answer to that is no.
Yeah. Matt wants to know, how many letters are you mailing and how long to get one deal? I think you said earlier, a minimum 6-month mailing sequence and probably 12 months.
What I do is I mail until I buy the house, someone else buys the house, or on the rare occasion, someone gets upset and I can't turn them around and they get taken off the list. So in general, a probate campaign is going to run no longer than 12, 15 months. Mm-hmm. In 2008, we saw that go more like 18 months to 2 years. Mm-hmm. It went much longer. But today, what I recommend is, in a perfect world, you would send out 4 letters and scrub your list. Well, we're all very busy, and that's hard to do. So I tell people at the very minimum, send out 6 letters, scrub your list, take off solds. Some will have a family member will have bought them, or they will have decided to list them on the MLS, and then resume the letters. Once again, as long as the house is available, why would you stop mailing? Because you've built this know, like, and trust over time. And you've told them exactly how you can make their life easier. That's the really big thing.
Right. Listening to you talk about it, I mean, it seems like probate is the perfect setup for long-term CRM, no texting, no phone calls, no ringless voicemails, just 12 to 15 cards or letters set up. If you go through the full cycle, you're only going to spend about $15 for marketing on that.
Here's the thing, and I want to point this out. My recommendation from years of doing this, and with the thing that works best, is a white computer generated mail merge letter that says, "Dear Mr. Smith," or whatever, "I'm contacting you about this property." For a little bit of reference here, when I started doing this probates in 2008, it was $1.50 to get a letter sent out by a company, and stamps were probably in the 30-cent range by then. Today, there are companies. How much is a stamp even? Over 50 cents. See, I haven't bought actual stamps in so long, 50 some cents. You can get a letter done for you through a company. The company I love is Open Letter Marketing. For about $1, they can send out the letter. They do all the work. They stamp it. They use their paper, their toner. They use their envelopes, their everything. And you cannot do it for that extra 50 cents. That has changed tremendously. And the other thing I love about this company, for those of you all may know this person, Justin Silverio. He's a real estate investor. He is a very successful real estate investor, and they will do small batch mailings of 200. Do you know most companies want you to do 1,000 to get the price break? You know, on Postcards, you get that big price break at 1,000. But here's another tip I'll give you. I do not mail to surviving spouses. I learned early on, about the first 3 months I did probates, that it was usually elderly women, think you're coming after their house because their husband has passed away. So we look at who's on the tax record, and if there appears to be a surviving spouse. And if you're not sure, this is a case where you can Google the obituary and it says survived by. I don't mail those people in this regular sequence, but and in a normal mailing, you don't want to use postcards because they view it as you being insensitive to their situations. We're mentioning the estate, right. But you can pull these surviving spouses out. And in about 8 months, 9 months, maybe a year, you can start sending them a postcard that's a generic "We Buy Houses" postcard, looking for property in your area, never mentioning the estate. Mm-hmm. So I've watched people around me that have lost someone, and usually at around a year mark, they figure out they don't want to keep that great big house. You know, maybe the husband helped a lot, and they want to go be near their children, or they want to move to Florida or Belize, but it takes them a while. You know, this is a process for them. But at about that year mark, 8 months to a year, you can turn around without ever mentioning the estate and have them in your CRM in a separate list called surviving spouses. Mm-hmm. There's another whole mailing campaign you can just put on autopilot.
Right. Right. Hey, yeah, that's right. Sammy, the company she mentioned is Open Letter Marketing. I want to tell you though, and I'm not familiar with them. It sounds like they're a pretty good company, but if you're a Subtitles Coaching Group student, I want you to put the brakes on picking a marketing company right now. I know I've been talking to you guys for the last couple of months about this, but we're finishing up right now with some mailing sequence letters and negotiating some prices with a company that's going to let you mail a letter for about 75 cents, handwritten, that's postage included, and they don't have a minimum. You can mail one. or 1,000. So
Nice.
that's pretty sweet. And we're going to have that ready for you guys in about a week or two. So I talked to him the other day and he said we were just about ready to go. So you guys hold on, hang on. You know, I got a deal for you. David asked if the deceased was prior military with no will, does that impact anything at all?
Prior military, no.
Yeah, that wouldn't impact anything.
No.
Joni asked, do you ever put a pamphlet in your mailing for services to help someone, like for auctioneers or pool companies or anything like that?
You can do that, but what I would recommend you do is try, rather than giving them a pamphlet that they may just throw in the garbage, is to mention that you have other services and encourage them to call you and strike up a conversation.
Yeah.
And then tell them.
Right.
There are some companies that offer, I have referred people to, there used to be an auctioneer that was probably 30, 40 miles from here. If you look at cleaning out a house from a hoarder, you know how much money that costs. So this company would come in and they would give you a bid to either they would take it to the auction company and sell it in their, I don't know how the split was, but they would split with you, or they would offer you a dollar amount for the contents of the house. And I knew personally of a situation where it was a small house, maybe 900,000 square feet with a basement packed to the ceiling. And they offered this person $1,500 for the contents of the house. Now, they never bought a piece of new furniture since 1965. So there were no valuables there. But what a deal that was. You didn't have to pay it to have it done. You didn't have to do it. And once they got what they considered were the papers and pictures and things like that, they got paid not to clean out the house. So if you know of a service like that, yeah, that's very valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I had a good friend in Macon once that bought a hoarder house, and the kids just wanted to sell it as is. They didn't want to clean it out. They didn't want to do anything. And it was funny when they got in there and started cleaning it out, they started finding unopened boxes of metal detectors and rifles. And I think when the final tally was in, this investor made over $20,000 selling stuff. Still in boxes, never opened, that he got out of that house that was just buried under tons of junk.
Some people do that. Some people, that's part of their business model. Now, if the people are not savvy and they want you to clean out the house, you should always offer to clean out the house for these people. That's one of the things that keeps them from moving forward. And it's, generally speaking, I would put $1,000, $1,500 in there for I was generally wholesaling houses at this point. So I would put that amount in the rehabbers, what I figured his costs would be. I just figured it was kind of one dumpster, so many men, two dumpsters, whatever that was. I just figured that in the costs. But there are some people just walk away from antiques. They may even know they're antiques, but they don't care. Right. I'm not a person who looks at dishes and goes, oh, plate is worth $50. That's just not my thing. But there are those people that do that. Mm-hmm. So whatever is your interest or whatever your skill set is, I would say there's lots of people that have kind of a side business to probate.
Right. Tanya asked, what percentage ultimately work with you versus selling traditional retail? Would you say?
What do you mean on wholesale selling?
No, if you approach them as an investor wanting to buy the house, what percentage of people say, no, we're going to list it and sell it?
Well, it's hard to say, because usually I weed those people out on the phone, and I'll ask them what their goals are, what their situation is. I try to get an overview of what their life looks like with this probate added on to it. And I begin to get a sense of whether they can be swayed. They may say, I want this much money for the house. And I'll always say, well, how did you come to that number? Well, that's what the house down the street sold for. It's like any other deal. So then I'll say, well, is your house in the same condition as that one? No, my mom and dad didn't do anything forever. So I start to change the tone. I call it changing the seller's expectations. I usually start to have that conversation on the phone, because after you've been in business a while, you don't necessarily want to look at every single house just for the sake of driving around. Now, when I was brand new, I fully think when you're brand new, if you get an opportunity to look at a house, it's like college.
Right.
You just go look at it and figure it out. But generally speaking, I know before I ever go to the house if this is likely going to be an investor deal.
Right. Hey, Laurel, good to see you here. Tammy, good to see you. And Danny's got a question. Have you tried cold calling probates? I don't think.
Oh God. Oh God. God, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do.
Yeah. Somebody's mama died, Danny. Don't.
You're never going to forget that. Somebody's
Right.
mama died.
Tammy said, I'm in Florida where we have a tremendous amount of assisted living facilities and retirement homes. Would it be advantageous to build relationships with the directors of these facilities to get leads?
It might be in your case. They usually have someone in those places that's like a social worker. And I had one of those people reach out to me here that wanted to send me leads. However, he had no knowledge of real estate, and he got a subscription to our tax assessor site, and that's what he thought the house was worth. And he wanted me just to give me the person, and then I should go over there and write him a check for the full value of the house that was worth half that much. So I was never able to explain to him, and I couldn't figure out why he couldn't figure it out, that a house that needs $50,000 worth of work is not worth what's on the tax assessor site, or on an appraisal. So if you can find someone and make them understand the business that you're in, that was definitely not this guy.
Right.
But yeah, I see there are definitely opportunities, especially in Florida, where there's so many retirees down there.
Right.
Florida is a great place to work probates.
Laurel asks, she says, currently looking at a house, owners are deceased, no children. Wife passed first, husband passed this year. Husband's mother and his siblings still living. Is his mother the sole heir?
His mother is probably not necessarily the heir, but she would almost certainly be the personal representative appointed in court.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess you'd need a probate attorney to really sort that out for you.
Yeah. Well, and someone has to open the estate to sell the property. And that's the case of where they may all be perfectly happy living free in the house.
Yeah, that's right. It may just stay like it is.
They may just stay like it is.
Yeah.
Till somebody needs some money.
Yeah. Renee asks, have you been involved with probate when a beneficiary deed is in the will?
That's not something I'm familiar with in Kentucky. Beneficiary deed. Is it like here like with a husband and a wife, where it's here it's called a survivorship deed?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing?
Give us a little bit more information on that, Rennie, exactly what you're talking about. Bonnie asks, Sharon, how localized do you keep your investing?
I invest in my own backyard. I know some people are very successful investing in, other areas. I think if you can have boots on the ground and have systems in place, then you can do it easier today than you could when it was kind of a new thing back, not too many years ago. But most of the people that I know that do it successfully, they have boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Kevin, good to see you. Chris, good to see you in here. Corey, I agree. Great stuff. We appreciate Sharon so much for being here. Chris asked, do you use postcards at any point in the mailing sequence? If you've already sent 2 to 5 letters, will you mix in a round of postcards as a touch point?
Not in probates, because they get upset.
Right. Yep. Kevin, hope you're getting some ideas here to help you with your probate investing. Danny said, yeah, I got yelled at really bad once. Yeah, if you were cold calling, you probably did. I can imagine.
Texting will get about the same result. I had a good friend that decided, now he knows I do probates. I said, don't do that. So he calls me up about 2 weeks later. I've been yelled at for 2 weeks. And I said, no kidding.
Right. And I can imagine that if you did that a bunch, it would hurt your, especially if you were in a smaller area, it might hurt your reputation a little bit as an investor.
They don't think you're the smartest cookie in the tin. That's for sure. If you don't understand that,
you're definitely not thought of as very sensitive or compassionate, for sure.
No.
Yeah. So Tanya said, Sharon, so to clarify, initially, you don't mail to a surviving spouse, but instead to the children? I'm not sure where that came from.
You
exactly.
mail to the, you mail to the personal representative unless it's a surviving spouse. And that's a matter of choice. You can mail to them, but I got tired of the elderly people calling and crying. It's an individual decision. I just don't do it. Most of the time, it's a situation where it's a child or the executor is someone else. So it doesn't really have too big of an effect. But it's a personal decision. If you want to try that, you can certainly try it.
Okay. Kevin asked, he said, I'm in Georgia. We have a house in our neighborhood where the owner died intestate with heirs. The heirs think the house was foreclosed. It wasn't. They think they can't sell it. Taxes are due and unpaid. Can I pay the taxes and ultimately own the house? Or do I have to wait for the tax sale? I'll jump in here and say that I had a situation once where I bought a house from a fellow, and nobody died in the situation, but he had a kitchen fire, got into a fight with the insurance company, and just basically said, okay, you can have the house, shove it, and walked away. I contacted him 5 years later. He assumed the house had been foreclosed on. It hadn't. And so I just said to him, and, I said, hey, okay, so you've walked away. Will you sign a quitclaim deed for $100? And he said, sure. And so all I did was contact, it was Bank of America who had the loan currently, and said, listen, we're doing some title work down here on this property. We're trying to get it sold, and it shows you guys having an open mortgage. And they said, we can't find it. And, but we'll send it to the research department. And if we can't find it, we'll send you a satisfaction. So they did.
You're kidding.
Yeah. But in his case here, the heirs think the house was foreclosed on. So what would you do in that situation?
Well, I guess, in my area, you could go on the tax assessor site and see who owned the house. And if it says Bank of America, it's been, or something like that, it's been foreclosed on. If it's still in the name of the person who passed away, or, then I would assume that it wouldn't be foreclosed on in my area, at least, because the change of ownership would show up.
Right. So he said this house has not been foreclosed on, but the heirs think they can't sell it because they think it has been.
Well, then I would follow William's strategy and go over there and offer them, if there's heirs, 3 heirs, offer them $300 for a quit claim. Offer them each $100. And then your name is obviously not on the mortgage. The most you could be out is $300, and you might actually get a great deal. That's actually a great strategy.
But if the house is still in the guy that died's name, it's got to go through some kind of process.
Yes, it should have to. I would say that's when I would hire call my real estate attorney.
Right. In
fact, I might make that call before and say, can I do this? And if I can't, why can't I?
Yeah. I'll tell you that that's not related to probate, but if you find a house that has got an old security deed that hasn't been foreclosed on, if you'll contact, and it takes some phone calls and some time to get somebody that can answer that question. And I just told him, I said, listen, we're doing some title work down here on a house, and we're trying to get some things closed out, and you guys are still showing an open security deed. And if mortgages get sold so often, paperwork gets shuffled and lost. They'll send you satisfaction. So, I mean, that they satisfied a $36,000 mortgage for free. That was,
Oh my
was pretty
word.
sweet.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so let's see. Corey asked, out of curiosity, in your experience, what percentage of sellers are willing to allow you to take a property sub two?
No. Well, if they're probate, it can't be sold sub two.
Yeah, that's going to go back to that situation we talked about earlier, where it was deeded to an heir.
Yeah.
That can actually do that.
Then you can do it. If it's actually got to go through the probate process, you can't use sub two or other creative strategies.
Okay. Renee says a very specific deed that is filled out and signed by the owner, by both the attorney and the owner. Okay, she's answering a question, I think. Okay, guys.
So that's back to the deed question, the beneficiary deed.
Right. And Jeannie says you can use an affidavit of heirship. Okay. All right, guys. It's after 10. We're going to wrap up Goat Talk for today. We appreciate every one of you guys for being here, and certainly appreciate Sharon for coming out and talking to us about probate. Sharon, tell us about your blog again, where people can find you. And we're going to come back and message everybody that participated with a link to that starter kit. So tell us about
the blog is the Louisville Gals Real Estate blog, and there is a you can tag right off of there to the podcast, Let's Talk Real Estate Investing podcast. And I have some other freebies over there, but there's just a lot of information, and just search in the search bar, because I also talk a lot about marketing and branding.
Right.
So you can, I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much again for being here. Thanks everybody for joining us. Listen, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information today. We're planning an event in New Orleans in September, in early September. If you're interested in possibly attending, and this is going to be a small group, we've got a limited number of seats that we're going to offer. Go over to our website. It's sub2palooza, sub2palooza.com, and enter your email address, and we'll keep you updated on what's going on. And as we finalize those plans, we'd love to have all you guys out there. We're going to have some incredible training, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So you guys join us again. Sharon, thanks for being here talking about probate. Thanks to everybody for joining us this morning. And don't forget, we'll be back next Thursday for Goat Talks. You guys have a great day. Talk to some sellers and buy some houses.
Thanks for having me.